Ryan gets the big room, my father said. He needs the space. You're quiet, Ethan. You can manage. I stood in the hallway with my school bag on my shoulder and looked into the room that used to be mine. Ryan was already inside, grinning like he had won something. I had that room first, I said. My father kept walking. And now he has it. Don't start. My mother touched my arm. It's only a room, honey. That was how she loved me, in soft words that changed nothing. So I moved into the smaller room at the back of the house, the one with the stuck window and the closet door that leaned open like a bad secret. Ryan got new paint, a bigger desk, and praise for doing nothing except being Ryan. When I asked Dad to fix my window, he said, "Later." Later never came. At dinner, my father was talking again, excited in the way he only got around my brother. "Coach says Ryan has leadership," he said. "That boy is going places." Ryan smiled with his mouth full. "He said I could be captain next year." My father laughed. "I'm not surprised." My mother beamed at him. "That's wonderful." I waited for a pause. "My college interview is tomorrow." No one answered. "Dad," I said, "tomorrow, at 9. He looked at me like I had cut into a speech. "What interview?" "The one I told you about twice." Ryan laughed into his drink. "Guess it didn't make an impression." "Ryan," my mother said, but there was no edge in her voice. "It's for Brookdale," I said, "the business program." Dad frowned. "Brookdale costs money." "It's just the interview." "Same path, same bill," he said. "Did you apply anywhere sensible?" "I applied where I wanted." He gave me a look I knew too well. "That must be nice." My mother finally asked, "What time do you need to leave?" 8. She nodded. "We'll figure it out." Then Dad turned back to Ryan. "Tell me what Coach said about summer training." That was how things worked. Ryan was the headline. I was the note in the margin. The next morning, I was dressed by 7:30, folder in hand, shoes on, waiting in the kitchen. At 7:45, my mother walked in carrying towels. "Your father had to take Ryan," she said. I stared at her. "Take him where?" "He overslept for practice." "My interview is in 15 minutes. "I know." "You said we'd figure it out." "We are figuring it out." "No," I said. "You already did. You chose him." Her face changed for a second, but not enough. "Don't make this bigger than it is." Bigger than it is. I grabbed my folder and ran for the bus stop anyway. The first bus was late. The second never came. By the time I reached the college office, the woman at the front desk gave me a careful smile. "We called your name twice," she said. "I'm sorry." I thanked her. I had been trained to be polite when disappointment was handed to me like it was normal. When I got home, Ryan was asleep on the couch. Dad was in the kitchen reading his phone. He looked up. "How'd it go?" I laughed once. It sounded wrong. "I missed it." He lowered the phone. "Why?" I stared at him. "Because you took Ryan to practice." "It was one ride, Ethan. It was my interview." He shrugged. "There will be others." Mom came in then. "Let's not argue." I looked at all three of them and felt that old thing inside me, the part that always folded in on itself to make space for everyone else. "When Ryan needs something," I said, "the whole house moves. When I need one thing, I'm told to understand." "That's not fair," my mother said. "What part?" Dad's voice hardened. "Watch your tone." Ryan walked in, rubbing his eyes. "Can everybody calm down? It's not like they ruined your life." I turned to him. "No, just another chance." He frowned. "Why are you blaming me?" "Because blaming one person would have been simpler than telling the truth. The truth was the room, the window, the birthdays that got pushed back because Ryan had games, the promises that turned into later. The way I got blamed because I was easier to disappoint." Mum stepped closer. "Ethan, it's fine," I said. It wasn't. It never was. But saying I was hurt in this house only made people ask me to be quieter about it. So I went to my room and shut the crooked door. I sat on the bed and listened to life move on without me. Through the vent, I heard Dad say, "Ryan, set an alarm next time." Ryan laughed. "Yeah, okay." That was all. No apology, no consequence. just another small cut laid over all the others. I stared at the wall and told myself what I always told myself. I could survive this too. Maybe next time would be different. Maybe one day when it really mattered, they would choose me. The email came at 6:14 that evening. "Congratulations, Ethan Cole." I read that line 3 times before I let myself believe it. Then I read the rest slower. I had been accepted into the training program in Millbrook. 6 weeks, paid housing, certification at the end, a real chance at real work. For the first time in years, something felt like mine. I walked into the kitchen with my phone in my hand. Dad sat at the table. Mom was drying plates. Ryan was stretched across 2 chairs, scrolling like he owned the room. "I got in," I said. Dad looked up. "Into what?" "Millbrook." Mom turned. "The training program?" "Yeah," she smiled. "Ethan, that's amazing." Ryan frowned. "Millbrook is far. 3 hours by train." Dad held out his hand. "Show me." I gave him the phone. He read the email, gave it back and said, "Paid training. Not bad." Not bad. That was the closest thing to pride I usually got. "I leave tomorrow," I said. "The train is at 8:30. Mom blinked. "Tomorrow morning?" "They sent the final confirmation today." Dad asked, "How are you getting there?" "There's a city strike. Buses are shut down till noon. I just need a ride to the station." Mom answered first. "Of course." Dad nodded. "Fine. Be ready at 7:30. I looked at him. "You mean it?" He gave me a flat look. "It's a ride, Ethan." Ryan smirked. "Try not to act too grateful." I ignored him. "I'll be ready." I packed my bag 3 different times. I checked my ticket so often the paper felt warm in my hand. I kept hearing Mom's voice in my head. Of course. At 11:32, Dad's phone rang. I heard his bedroom door open, then Mom's voice. Then panic filled the house when Ryan was involved. "What happened? Where are you? Is he hurt?" I stepped into the hallway as Dad came out pulling on his jacket. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom pressed a hand to her mouth. "Ryan had an accident." Dad grabbed his keys and left without another word. He came back 20 minutes later with Ryan in tow. Ryan had a split lip, red eyes, and the smell of alcohol hanging off him. Mom rushed to him. "Oh my God!" Ryan winced. "I'm fine." Dad said, "He could have been killed." I stared at Ryan. "You were driving drunk?" Ryan glared. "Don't start." "Did you hit someone?" "No." Dad snapped. "Enough." I looked at him. "He crashed the car." "It's not totaled," Ryan muttered. I laughed once. "That's your defense?" Mom pressed ice to his face. "Please, Ethan, not tonight." Not tonight. It was always not tonight when the truth made Ryan uncomfortable. I should have stopped. Instead, I asked, "We're still leaving at 7:30, right?" The silence was immediate. Dad looked irritated. Mom looked trapped. Ryan looked entertained. Finally, Dad said, "We'll deal with tomorrow." That answer sat in my chest all night. By 7 the next morning, I was dressed and standing by the door with my duffel bag. My folder was under my arm. My ticket was in my pocket. Dad was drinking coffee. Mom stood near the sink. Ryan sat at the table in yesterday's shirt. I waited. At 7:10, I said, "We need to go." Dad didn't move. At 7:15, I said, "The station is half an hour away." Mom kept wiping an already clean counter. At 7:20, Dad said, "Ryan needs urgent care." I stared at him. "What?" He woke up dizzy. Ryan touched the bandage on his lip like that proved something. "He can go later," I said. "My train leaves this morning." Dad shook his head. "He's my priority right now." I laughed. "Your drunk son with a cut lip is the priority over the biggest chance I've had in years?" "Watch your tone," Dad said. "No, you watch what you're doing." Mom finally looked at me then, and that hurt more than Dad's voice. "You understand, right?" she said. There it was, the sentence that had followed me my life. Understand. Wait. Need less. I looked at my bag, then at them. "With what money am I supposed to get there?" I asked. Dad said, "Don't be dramatic." Ryan muttered, Take a cab. I picked up my duffel. You promised. Dad looked away first. I walked out. I think some part of me still wanted them to stop me. They didn't. I tried anyway. I walked to the main road. No buses, no cabs willing to fight strike traffic. By the time I got to the station, the platform was almost empty. The woman at the counter checked the screen. That train left 9 minutes ago. I held out my ticket. There isn't another one? Not one that gets you there before registration closes. I thanked her. I had been trained to be polite even when my life was cracking open. When I got home, Dad was on the porch. You missed it? He asked. I looked at him. Yeah. He rubbed his neck. These things happen. No, I said. You happened. Mom stood behind him in the doorway. Ryan was on the couch, chosen, and something inside me finally broke. Not loudly, not all at once, just enough for me to see the truth clearly. I didn't lose my parents. They just never chose me when it mattered. I stopped eating dinner with them 3 nights after I missed the train. Mom knocked on my door and said, "You can't keep doing this." I kept folding my work shirt. Doing what? This silent treatment. I looked at her. Silence is the only thing this house has ever respected. Her face tightened. Ethan, please don't start. That almost made me laugh. I didn't start anything, I said. I just stopped pretending. She crossed her arms. Your father feels like you're punishing everyone. Does he? He does. Good. She flinched like that word had slapped her. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. At dinner the next night, Dad finally said what he had been building toward. You're being dramatic. I kept my eyes on my plate. Okay. He frowned. That's it? What do you want me to say? I want you to stop acting like we ruined your future. I looked up then. Ryan was chewing slowly, watching like this was television. Mom stared at her glass. You did, I said. Dad leaned back. You missed one opportunity. One that I earned. There will be others. There were supposed to be consequences for Ryan, too. Ryan rolled his eyes. Can you let that go? No. He dropped his fork. I said I was sorry. I stared at him. No, you didn't. He scoffed. I literally did. You said, don't hold this against me forever. That's not an apology. That's a request. Mom whispered, Ethan. I stood up. I'm done. Dad's voice followed me. You're making this house tense. I turned back. No, I'm just not making it easy anymore. After that, I worked every extra shift I could get at the warehouse on the edge of town. If someone called out, I covered. If there was late freight, I stayed. If there were boxes to move, I moved them until my shoulders burned and my hands shook. It wasn't revenge. Not at first. It was distance. One Thursday night, I was stacking cartons in aisle 6 when a voice behind me said, You planning to sleep here too? I turned. An older man in a grey button-down stood with a clipboard under one arm. He had sharp eyes, silver at his temples, and the kind of stillness that made other people talk less. I am finishing the row, I said. It's past 9. I know. He looked at the boxes, then at me. You always work like someone's chasing you? I shrugged. Maybe I walk fast. He stepped closer and read my name tag. Ethan. Yes, sir. Don't call me sir unless I'm firing you. Vincent Hale. I nodded. Okay. He watched me for a second longer. You're good at this? It's boxes. It's consistency, he said. Most people here move when they're watched. You move the same either way. I didn't know what to do with that. At home, being noticed usually meant I had failed at something. So I said, Thanks. He tilted his head. That sounded painful. I almost smiled. From then on, Mr. Hale stopped near my station most nights. Sometimes he asked about inventory. Sometimes he asked if I had eaten. Once he handed me a bottle of water and said, Working hard isn't noble if it's just another way to bleed quietly. I looked at him. That's a strange thing to say at a warehouse. It's a strange thing to watch in a 22-year-old, he replied. I didn't answer, but his words stayed with me. A week later, I was leaving after a late shift when I heard someone say my name. Ethan? I turned and saw Maya Bennett standing by the vending machines near the front office, holding a paper cup of coffee. I hadn't seen her in over a year. For a second, I only remembered high school hallways and the way she used to look straight at people instead of around them. Maya, I said, what are you doing here? My cousin works in dispatch. I was waiting for her. She studied my face. You look tired. I'm fine. She gave me a flat look. That answer has never been true in the history of humanity. I let out a quiet breath. Still dramatic, huh? Still a bad liar, she said. We stepped outside. The air was cold and clean. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she asked, What happened? Nothing. She nodded once. Okay, then why do you look like you're holding your breath in your own life? That landed too cleanly. I looked away. I missed something important. Because of them? I glanced at her. You guessed fast. You used to do this in school too. Do what? Shrink after someone hurt you, she said. Like taking up less space would stop it from happening again. I wanted to deny it. I didn't. Instead, I asked, was I that obvious? To anyone paying attention? I laughed, but it came out tired. Maya softened. You don't have to tell me tonight. Good. But don't insult me with, I'm fine, again. That time, I did smile. When I got home, the house was quiet. Dad had left the kitchen light on. Mom had put leftovers in the fridge with my name on them. Ryan's shoes were in the hallway, careless as ever. Everything looked normal. That was the part that finally felt unreal. What broke in me stayed broken, but something else was forming around it now. Not hope. Not yet. Just the beginning of seeing the truth clearly, and realizing warmth could exist outside the people who should have given it first. They noticed me again when my absence started costing them something. Dad caught me in the kitchen one Sunday morning while I was pouring coffee into a travel mug. You got paid Friday, right? He asked. I looked at him over the rim. Yes. He leaned against the counter like this was casual. The electric bill is short. I waited. So? He said. So what? He frowned. Contribute. I set the mug down. I already buy my own food. I cover my phone. I pay for gas when I use the car. And you live here, he said. That didn't matter when Ryan wrecked the car. His jaw tightened. This isn't about Ryan. It usually is. Mom walked in right on cue, tension already in her face. Can we not do this first thing in the morning? Dad pointed at me. He's gotten an attitude. I picked up my mug again. No, I just started answering honestly. He laughed once. You think working extra shifts makes you a man? No, I said, but it does make me tired of being treated like an emergency fund nobody respects. Dad's voice dropped. You sound selfish. I looked at him for a long second. Then I said the word I had spent most of my life swallowing. No. He blinked. Mom did too. What do you mean, no? Dad asked. I mean no. To helping this house? To being used by it. Mom stepped forward. Ethan, family helps family. I held her gaze. Family also shows up when it matters. That evening, Mom knocked on my door while I was changing for work. Your aunt and uncle are coming Friday, she said. Wear something nice and be home by 6. Why? For dinner. We never do family dinner on Fridays. We are this week. I looked at her. You want pictures? Her face fell. That's not fair. You want everyone to think we're normal. We are normal. I almost smiled. Then you don't need me there to prove it. Please, she said quietly, don't embarrass us. Us. Not hurt me. Not I miss you. Not we need to talk. Just don't embarrass us. I'm working Friday, I said. You can switch. I won't. Her eyes filled. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Punishing us. I pulled on my jacket. You keep calling boundaries punishment because you only liked me when I was easy. Ryan came to my room 2 nights later without knocking. He smelled like smoke. You got cash? He asked. I kept folding shirts into a laundry basket. No, he snorted. I need 400. For what? Something I have to handle. I looked at him. What did you do? He rolled his eyes. Nothing major. That usually means something major. He leaned forward. Can you help or not? No. He laughed. Wow, you're serious with this new personality. I'm serious with that answer. His smile thinned. You really want to be this petty forever? It's not petty to stop saving people who'd let me drown. His face changed at that. For the first time, he seemed to understand that I really meant it. Unbelievable, he muttered. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I just finally understand my place here. He stood up. You're being pathetic. Then ask Dad. I did. After he left, I sat on the floor beside my bed and felt guilt crawl up my throat. Every time I chose myself, some part of me still waited to be punished for it. Relief came too, quiet and unfamiliar, like air entering a locked room for the first time. I texted Maya before work. I said no again. Why does it feel horrible? She replied almost immediately. Because you were raised to think being useful was the same as being loved. I stared at the screen. Then another message came. If you disappeared tomorrow, would they miss you, or just the version of you that made their lives easier? I typed, I don't know. She sent back, you do know, you just don't like the answer. At work, I moved boxes until my arms shook, but her words stayed with me. By the time I got home, the house was quiet. Mom had left dinner in the fridge. Dad had left a note about taking out the trash. No one had asked if I was okay or where I'd been. They noticed missing labor, not me. I went into my room, looked at the bent closet door, and opened my drawer. I took out the envelope where I had been hiding cash. Then I pulled a duffel bag from under the bed. I didn't make a speech. I just started packing quietly, like a man leaving a place that had already left him first. I moved out on a Tuesday with one duffel bag, a backpack, and an envelope of cash that looked smaller once it was out in the open. The room I rented was above a laundromat on Mercer Street. It had one narrow bed, one chair, one hot plate, and a window that faced a brick wall. When the landlord handed me the key, he said,
It's not much.
I looked around and answered, It's mine. That first night, I sat on the edge of the bed eating noodles from a paper cup and listening to the pipes knock in the walls. The room was cramped, and I should have felt miserable. Instead, I felt something close to peace. Nobody was shouting downstairs. Nobody was asking me to understand. The next morning, I got to the warehouse 20 minutes early. Mr. Hale saw me checking inventory by the loading dock and said, You look different. I moved out. He studied my face. Bad terms? Honest terms. He nodded. You sleep at all? Enough. That means no. I almost smiled. It means I'm here. He handed me a clipboard. Good. Then you can supervise the West shipment today. I stared at him. Me? Yes, you. Unless there's another Ethan hiding behind those boxes. I've never supervised anything here. You've been doing half the work already, he said. This just makes it official. By noon I had handled 2 delivery errors, 1 missing pallet, and a driver with an attitude problem. When the shift ended, Mr. Hale found me restacking damaged cartons. How bad was it? I asked. He said, You kept the line moving. That puts you ahead of most people. That sounds nice. It is nice, he said. Don't get spoiled. That became the pattern. More responsibility, more trust, more chances to prove I could do the things my parents always said I wasn't ready for. At night, Maya sometimes called while I sat by the window with cheap takeout in my lap. How's the palace? She asked once. It has a deluxe view of brick. Luxury, she said. Are you okay? I looked around the tiny room. I'm tired, broke, eating noodles again. That wasn't my question. I let out a breath. Yeah, I think I am. Good, she said. You sound more like a person and less like someone bracing for impact." She listened without rushing me. When I was angry, she let me be angry. When I went quiet, she waited instead of filling the silence with excuses. She never treated my pain like a burden. 3 weeks after I moved out, Mum texted me, "We miss you at dinner." I stared at it, then typed back, "Do you miss me? Or that I used to help keep things easy?" She replied 10 minutes later, "How can you say that to your mother?" No answer. Just hurt, turned back around like I'd thrown the first stone. Dad called 2 days later. "You still working at that warehouse?" "Yes." "You got any extra money?" I laughed before I could stop myself. "That's your opening line? Don't get smart." "What do you need?" "Ryan's in a situation." "Of course he is." Dad exhaled sharply. "He's behind on something." "Then he should pay it." "He can't." I leaned against the wall beside my bed. "Neither can I." "You left this family and suddenly think you owe nobody anything." "No," I said. "I just stopped paying for things that were never mine." He hung up on me. A week later, Mr. Hale called me into his office. He slid a printed sheet across the desk. "What's this?" I asked. "A logistics coordinator opening with a partner company in Millbrook." I stared at the page, then at him. "Millbrook? You know it?" "Yeah." My throat tightened. "I know it." He leaned back. "Better pay, better hours, real path upward. I already told them about you." I looked at him. "Why?" "Because you're ready." The words hit harder than they should have. My father had spent years acting like readiness was something Ryan naturally deserved, and I had to beg to be seen for. Mr. Hale said it like it was obvious. That night I told Maya over coffee near her apartment. She grinned. "So take it." "I haven't even interviewed." "You will." "You sound sure." "I am," she said. "You built a life from one duffel bag and spite. Imagine what you'll do with actual support." I laughed, and for once it came easily. When I got back to my room, my phone lit up with 3 messages from Mom. "Ryan is struggling. Your father is under pressure. Families should not live divided like this." I read them all and set the phone face down. For the first time in my life, their chaos was no longer the center of mine. I had bills, exhaustion, and a room. But every choice inside it was mine. And slowly, with discipline, distance, and the kind of respect I had never been given at home, I was building a life they could no longer control. My father called me at 8:17 on a Thursday night. I almost let it ring out. When I answered, he said, "Where are you?" "In my room." There was a pause. Then, "At that place on Mercer?" "Yes." His voice sounded wrong, not soft, but stripped down. "We need to talk." "About what?" "Ryan." "Of course." I leaned back in my chair. "What did he do?" My father exhaled slowly. "He was driving a friend's car. There was an accident, property damage. Then he argued with the officer who showed up." I closed my eyes. "Was he drunk?" Another pause. "Yes." "And?" "He had something else on him." I sat up. "What does that mean?" "It means he's in trouble." I laughed once. "He's always in trouble." "This is different." I could hear my mother crying in the background. Dad said quieter, "Can you come over?" I should have said no. Instead, I said, "I'll be there in 20. When I walked into the house, nothing had changed, and everything had. The same hallway, the same lamp by the stairs, Ryan's jacket thrown over the couch. Mom rushed to me first. Her eyes were swollen. "Ethan." I stepped back before she could hug me. "What happened?" She wiped her face. "He was arrested." Dad stood in the dining room with papers spread out in front of him. For once, he looked older than I remembered. "How bad?" I asked. Dad answered, "Bad enough." "That's not an answer." "He needs a lawyer." "And money," I said. Dad looked at me. "Yes." There it was. Not "we miss you." Not "we were wrong." Not, I'm sorry, just the bill after the damage. I pulled out a chair but didn't sit. How much? Dad named the number. I let out a breath. You can't be serious. Mum said, we don't know what else to do. I looked between them. You came to me because I'm the only one who didn't wreck his own life. Dad's jaw moved, but he didn't deny it. Mum whispered, please don't say it like that. How should I say it? She started crying harder. We know we failed you. I turned to her. Do you? Yes. Since when? Her mouth opened, then closed. Dad said, this isn't the time. I looked at him. No, this is exactly the time. His shoulders stiffened. Ethan. No, I said. You asked me to come. I'm here, so you're going to hear me. The room went still. I put both hands on the back of the chair and finally said the things I had spent years forcing down. You want help now because Ryan finally became too expensive to protect. That's what this is. Not regret, not honesty. Cost. Mom covered her mouth. I kept going. You chose him when he wanted my room. You chose him when I missed my interview. You chose him every time he needed rescuing, and every time I needed one thing. Dad looked away. We did our best. I laughed. No, you did what was easiest. That's not fair. Fair? Fair would have been remembering my interview. Fair would have been not telling me to understand every time Ryan messed up. Fair would have been acting like I was your son instead of the backup plan you used when he failed. Mom was crying openly now. Ethan, please. I looked at her too. And you? You stood there every time. You saw it, you knew, and you kept asking me to keep the peace. I was trying to hold the family together. No, I said. You were trying to avoid conflict. You let me carry what you didn't want to confront. Her face crumpled. Dad's voice came rougher this time. Enough. I turned to him. Not yet. He met my eyes, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look away. I spent years thinking if I was patient enough, useful enough, quiet enough, you'd finally choose me when it counted. And every time, you didn't. He said nothing. I felt my throat tighten, but I kept my voice level. You know what the worst part is? It wasn't Ryan. It was the two of you watching it happen and teaching me that my pain was the price of keeping this house comfortable. Mom sank into a chair, sobbing. Dad dragged a hand over his face. I thought you were stronger. The words hit like a slap because they explained everything. I nodded slowly. Exactly. He looked at me then, and whatever he saw finally broke through the excuses. His voice cracked. I was wrong. I swallowed. Years ago, that would have been enough to destroy me. Now it just sounded late. Mom whispered, "Can you forgive us?" I took a breath. "I can hear you," I said. "That's not the same as undoing it." Dad looked at the papers on the table, then back at me. Smaller now. Too late, but human. Their regret had learned my name. It just arrived years after I had learned how to survive without it. Dad called the next morning. His voice was flat, worn down past pride. "Can you meet me before noon?" I was sitting on the edge of my bed in work clothes, lacing my boots. "Why?" The lawyer gave us options. Us? A pause. Ryan. I looked at the floor for a second. "I can come by for 20 minutes. When I arrived, Mom opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes were swollen again, but her voice was careful, almost polite. "Thank you for coming." I stepped inside. I said 20 minutes. Dad was at the dining table with papers spread into neat piles. Ryan sat across from him, pale, angry, and quieter than I had ever seen him. There was a bruise along his jaw and another reality in his face. No one had rescued him yet. Dad pointed to a chair. "Sit." "I'm fine standing." Ryan let out a short laugh. Still dramatic. I looked at him. "You should save your energy." He stared back, but this time there was no smugness in it, just shame, wearing arrogance like a borrowed coat. Dad slid one paper toward me. "If he pleads early, the damage is less severe. There's restitution, legal fees, and a mandatory program. And? Dad rubbed his hand over his mouth. And we can't carry all of it. Mom said softly, "We're asking if you'll help us think clearly. Not fix everything." That was new, not fix everything. I looked at the papers, numbers, deadlines, consequences, real ones. Years ago, I would have reached for all of it. I would have drained my savings, worked double shifts, and called it love because I had wanted so badly to matter. Now, I knew better. "I'll do 2 things," I said. Dad looked up. "What?" "I'll help you organize the payment plan, and I'll speak to Mr. Hale about whether his friend still knows a decent lawyer who won't bleed you dry." Mom grabbed the edge of the table. "That would help." Dad asked, "And money?" "No." The word landed cleanly. Ryan sat back. "So that's it? You're just going to watch this happen?" I turned to him. "No. I'm going to watch you face something for once." His face hardened. "You love this." "That's what you would do," I said. "Not me." Mom started crying again, quieter this time. "Please don't turn your back on us." I looked at her. "I'm not turning my back. I'm refusing to crawl back into the role you gave me." Dad's voice was rough. "Is there any way to fix this?" For a second, the room went still. He wasn't asking about court. He wasn't asking about Ryan. He was asking about us, maybe for the first honest time in his life. I took a breath. "Some things can be forgiven." Mom's face lifted. "But they can't be unwritten," I said. "You don't erase years because you finally ran out of ways to avoid the truth." Dad lowered his eyes. Mom stepped toward me. "Then give us another chance." I held her gaze. "To do what?" "To be better." "You might be," I said, "but that doesn't mean I hand you access to me like nothing happened." Her mouth trembled. "I'm your mother." "Yes," I said, "and that mattered most when I was younger. Not now when the damage is already built into me." Ryan shoved his chair back. "So we just sit here and let you act superior?" Dad snapped. "Enough." Ryan blinked at him. Dad stood slowly. "No more. Not today." Something shifted in the room then. Not healing, not even peace. Just the first moment I had ever seen Ryan face a boundary that didn't move. He looked at me with anger, then fear under it. "You really won't save me." I answered honestly. "Not from yourself." He looked away first. I spent the next half hour sorting the papers into a real order, writing down numbers, dates, names, and steps. Practical help, limited help, the kind that didn't cost me my future. Mom watched me like I was already halfway gone. When I finished, I pushed the stack toward Dad. "Start with these calls, today. Don't wait." He nodded. "I won't." I picked up my jacket. Mom said, "Are you leaving already?" "Yes." She took a shaky breath. "Will you come back?" I thought about the room on Mercer, about cheap coffee with Maya, about Mr. Hale saying I was ready, about how quiet my own life had become once I stopped begging this house to love me properly. "I might visit," I said, "but I'm not returning to who I was here." Dad stood near the table, shoulders bent in a way I had never seen before. "Ethan." I paused. "I am sorry," he said. I believed him. That was the strange part. I believed him, and it still changed nothing essential. Regret could tell truth at last, but truth arriving late was not the same thing as repair. I gave a small nod. "I know." Then I walked to the door. No one stopped me. No one demanded more. No one called me selfish. I stepped outside into the afternoon light and felt something settle inside me. Not joy. Not revenge. Not even relief exactly. Clarity. For the first time, choosing myself did not feel cruel. It felt like survival. And I finally understood the difference. 8 months later, I still woke up early. Not because I was anxious anymore. Not because I was waiting for someone to need something from me before I had even opened my eyes. I woke early because my life had shape now. 2 months after my interview, I got the job in Millbrook. Mr. Hale had been right. When I called him to tell him, he said, "I know." I laughed. "You sound unbearable." "That's because I'm often correct." You could at least pretend to be humble. I'm mentoring you, not flirting with you, he said. He went quiet for a second, then answered in a softer voice. Get used to better. So I did. My apartment in Millbrook wasn't big, but it had sunlight in the kitchen and clean white walls. I had a steady paycheck, a desk with my name on it, groceries I chose myself, and evenings that belonged to me. Peace had turned out to be quiet, practical, and ordinary. One Saturday, Maya stood in my kitchen holding a mug of coffee and looking out the window. You still do that thing, she said. What thing? You look surprised every time you realize this is your life. I leaned against the counter. Maybe I'm still adjusting. She smiled. Good. I'd be worried if pain had felt more natural than peace forever. That was Maya. She told the truth cleanly enough to leave a mark. We had become something steady, not rushed, not built on rescue. We ate cheap takeout, argued over movies, and told each other the truth even when it made things harder. Being with her never felt like performing. I did not have to earn tenderness from her. I only had to return it honestly. A week later, Mr. Hale visited Millbrook for a supplier meeting and asked me to meet him for lunch. He sat across from me in a diner booth and looked around before nodding once. Not bad. High praise. You have a decent tie now, he said. Try not to let success ruin your personality. I didn't know I had one worth saving. He set down his fork. That's the kind of sentence I never want to hear from you again. I looked at him. He leaned back. Family isn't always blood, Ethan. He continued. It's the people who show up when it matters. The people who don't ask you to disappear so they can stay comfortable. I looked down at my coffee. You make that sound simple. It is simple, he said. It's just not easy when you were taught the opposite. 3 days after that, I got a letter. Not a text, not a voicemail, a letter. My mother's handwriting was still the same, careful, rounded, trying to look steadier than it felt. I held the envelope for a long time before opening it. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and read. Ethan, I have started this letter many times. I kept writing the wrong version. The version where I explain, soften, and ask you to make me feel better for failing you. I do not want to send you that version anymore. You were right. That line alone made my throat tighten. I kept reading. We kept expecting you to survive things we never should have put on you. I told myself you were strong, mature, understanding. I used those words to excuse what we were doing to you. I thought keeping the house calm was the same as being a good mother. It was not. Too often, peace in that house was built out of your silence. I stopped there and covered my mouth. Then I read the rest. Your father is trying in his own late way. Ryan is facing what he has made of himself. None of that changes what we made of you. I see now that love without courage is not love that protects. I loved you, but I did not protect you. That is the truth I should have said years ago. I am not asking you to come home. I am not asking you to forgive me quickly. I only want you to know that I finally see what it cost you to be the easy son. I read that last line twice. Then I cried. Not the desperate kind, not the kind that comes from still hoping someone will finally become what you needed. This was quieter, grief and relief meeting in the same place. Maya found me like that an hour later. She let herself in with the spare key, saw the letter in my hand, and sat beside me without speaking. After a minute she asked, "Do you want to talk?" I nodded. She told the truth. That matters. Yeah, I said, it does. But... I wiped my face. But closure and reunion aren't the same thing. She rested her head lightly against my shoulder. No, they aren't. I folded the letter carefully. I think I needed to hear it. I just don't need to go back. That sounds sad. It is, I said, and healthy. That night after she left, I stood in my bathroom and looked at my reflection. Same eyes, same face, same scar near my chin from when I was 12. But something in me was different now. I did not look like a boy waiting to be chosen. I looked like a man who had chosen himself and lived. I touched the edge of the sink and said the truth out loud. I was never hard to love. The words shook a little. I said them again. I was never hard to love. And this time, I believed them. I had not been too quiet, too sensitive, too difficult, or too much work. I had just been surrounded by people too weak, too frightened, and too selfish to love me well. That truth did not erase the wound, but it closed it. I saw someone worth staying for forever.